Hi everybody, Jim Ostrowski on the bike path, going in the opposite direction because the sun is bright. A lot of snow in Buffalo, but not too bad of a day. It's actually, it's not that hot. Let's see if the camera's straight. Of course, I've got to straighten it up a little bit. Let's see what happens here. So, I'm going to break some news today, actually. That's not common. I'm normally mostly commenting on current affairs. I'm not making any news, but so yesterday, Angela McArdle, the chair of the National Libertarian Party, resigned. She's going to be starting a new project, she said, shortly. And so there's suddenly, as of yesterday, a vacancy in the chair of the National Libertarian Party. And I never really thought about going for that position. Literally never thought about it, but it's there. And I've talked to a few people, and they actually advised me to express some interest. So I'm not decided about it, but I'm thinking about it. And a lot will depend on finding out exactly what the job entails. I have read taken a quick look at the rules. They really don't say much. The vacancy will be filled by the National Committee, and I don't really know those people very well. I know two people slightly, so I'm not exactly a wired guy. There's lots of other candidates who've expressed an interest, and there's obviously some lobbying going on, and I assume most of those people are more sort of wired into what's happening than I am. So I have no idea what chance I have. It's really kind of irrelevant whether I want to pursue it. But I mean, if I do pursue it and it turns out that there's just no support, then obviously that's not going anywhere. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm busy. So the one thing I have, let me just back up and talk a little bit about, so people are not aware of my history in terms of, why I would be qualified. Assuming I am qualified, other people are going to have to make that determination. But so I've been involved in the Libertarian Party for like 44 years, off and on. I've held a number of different positions with the New York Party. I've never been involved in the National Party. I've been involved in some of the campaigns. So I've been the lawyer for the New York Libertarian Party on several occasions in recent years. So I am an election lawyer. I'm a lawyer, period, but I'm also an election lawyer. I've written like 13 books on libertarian policy, so I think I'm pretty familiar with the philosophy. I'm a bit of a policy wonk. I've written, 30, 40 policy studies going back to the 80s for various foundations and organizations and on my own. Think tanks. I've written a bunch of law review articles and scholarly papers and so on. So I think I have the writing and communication skills for the job. As far as I've written 5 books on political strategy. I think the total rest of the movement has written maybe 2. So I got the rest of the movement beat 5-2 approximately. That's based on my knowledge. If there's books out there I don't know of, obviously I can't comment on them. So, as far as political experience, I've said many times I'm probably the most experienced political operative in the movement. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but, I've been involved in electoral politics for like 50 years in the Democratic Party, in the Republican Party, in the Libertarian Party, in the Conservative Party, and in the short-lived Tea Party. I think back in the Tea Party days, I believe there were only 2 candidates in the state who ran as, quote, Tea Party candidates, and I put both of them on the ballot. So I've run for office, I've managed campaigns, I've been a volunteer, I've been a consultant, I was Ron Paul's election lawyer when he ran for president. So my experience is vast, and it's just really, frankly, not comparable to the other candidates. I'm not disparaging anybody, and I'm not, it's not my intention to really, I know who's out there, and I'm not really going to pick fights with people. I'm not interested in that. I would, highlight my qualifications versus theirs. I don't think that's being negative. But I think this is really, unless the thing has already been locked up behind closed doors, I think this is really going to come down to a question of what your vision is for the Libertarian Party. And is it the same vision that we've had for 50 years, which has resulted in, frankly, miserable failure? Or do you have a different vision? Well, what did Machiavelli say? It's better to be impetuous than cautious. So I've already sort of laid out my strategy for the Libertarian Party, not knowing at all that there was going to be any vacancy. So I already have baked in the cake a specific concrete vision for the party, which I've laid out in a series of podcasts on this network. So I invite you to look at those. So I'll just sort of summarize it here. By the way, Bills game at 6:30. I got the Bills by 10. I had the Baltimore game nailed down to who was going to make the big play, Von Miller, who nobody really expected to make any big plays. So go Bills. So what I said in a tweet today, just saying that, look, I'm not sure if I'm running, but I know what my platform would be if I ran, if that makes any sense. I think it does. So I have 3 points in my platform if I choose to run. And that decision, again, will be based in part on whether I have any support and whether people buy my ideas. Because if they don't, it's a waste of time. I'm not gonna go in and assuming I could cobble together some votes and, be the head of a party that's not interested in my ideas. But I don't think that's going to happen, because if I don't have the support for my program and platform, I won't have the votes. So that's not really a problem. It's an academic problem only. So there's 3 points to my platform if I was to run. One is I would continue the opening to Trump. I've explained why in a bunch of podcasts, but so basically, I think it's already proven to be successful. That effort has gotten the pardon of Ross Ulbricht. There's several other libertarian policies that Trump has already installed. Trump is not a libertarian, so please don't start giving me a checklist of the things he's done in the past or the things he's doing now that aren't libertarian. The fact of the matter is he's done some things that are libertarian. He reached out to the party, and no other candidate, he'd already been president. We can't get anybody important to come to our convention. He reached out. He said, he listed the things he did in his first administration that were libertarian. And then he listed additional steps he was going to take in his second administration that were libertarian. So I think I will continue that. Some of the other candidates are not MAGA friendly, and I think that's something that the voters on the National Committee will have to take into account. Do you want to reverse everything that was accomplished in the last year? Maybe you do, because you hate Trump and you think that it's all a waste of time. So don't vote for me, because it's not going to go anywhere anyway if I got elected. So I would continue the opening to Trump. Now, let me just say a word about strategy. Strategy is not a matter of principle by and large. It can get into a matter of principle if your strategy is, just strays too far from any sort of notion of what libertarianism is and what it's supposed to be accomplishing. So there's no reason that you can't be a hardcore libertarian. And by the way, I'd challenge anybody to claim they were more of a hardcore libertarian than I am. And I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you. I learned from the guy who invented the movement. Murray Rothbard. He was my teacher. So you can be hardcore libertarian on principle, but still engage in practical politics as long as Rothbard stated many times, as long as you're moving towards the goal of liberty. And what you don't want to do, he kind of, as an asterisk, what you don't want to do is start new government programs as part of this process. You don't want to do that. You just, if you're moving in the direction of shrinking government and increasing liberty, you're fine on the matter of principle. Because what else are you going to do? You're going to sit there and, you have opportunities to increase liberty. You're not going to do it because you think you're going to be some pure libertarian monk somewhere up in the Himalayas. That's fucking bullshit. So that's point one. I continue the opening to Trump. Point two is really much more important. So what I would do, I've already announced this in my open letter to the Libertarian Party that, I gotta get my glove on, sorry, that I released on election night. It's all over the web. It's all over all my social media. So basically my position is that we have focused on electoral politics for 50 years. And when I say focused, I mean like 95% of our effort, the Libertarian Party effort. And it's failed. It's obviously failed. I'm not really going to argue with anybody about that. I'm just going to just point out the fact that in 1980 we got 1% of the vote, and in 2024 we got 0.4% of the vote. And even if there wasn't this sort of phenomenon of libertarians voting for Trump because the candidate of the Libertarian Party appeared to be too far to the left for lots of libertarians, it doesn't matter, because then we would have gotten 1% of the vote. So what? You're still back at what we had in 1980. So what is it about 50 years of failure that people don't understand? I spoke to the New York State Libertarian Party Executive Committee, and I just did I had a lot of support on it, but a couple of the people just, how can you're insulting the party, you're criticizing the party. No, I'm just, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you, 50 years of electoral politics has failed. So what I'm going to advocate if I run and if I win is that the Libertarian Party drastically shift resources, time, energy, and money away from electoral politics and towards direct citizen action. And I have a complete program that could be expanded. I have some projects that are literally ready to roll if I had an organization the size and scope with the resources of the national and state Libertarian parties. And those programs include voting with your feet. I want to do an app ranking all 3,000 counties in the United States and encouraging people to vote with their feet to freer counties. And even if you don't want to leave your state, that app would still tell you which of 62 counties in New York are the freest. Actually, I penciled in Putnam County, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Did a prior podcast on that. It was back of the envelope. I haven't sort of signed off on that. So, voting with your kids. We've got to get the kids out of government school. I've been saying this for 25 years. The movement has essentially ignored me. And how are we doing? We're not doing well. We've got to get our kids out of the government school. You can't fix them. We're not going to reform them. School choice is bullshit. That's a conservative idea. They're going to try to make a government program work better. Our job is to shrink and get rid of government programs, and while they're still there, boycott, ostracize them, and avoid them. So those are two examples. I have a whole program on voting with your health. I'm writing a book about it now. 10,000 steps a day would cut American health expenditures in half and allow a drastic reduction in government spending. There's other examples of direct action, but I have a complete program. It's on my website at libertymovement.org. The website's not that great, but the content is good. It's not very interactive. So that would be the main plank in my platform if I was to run for chair, and if I was going to win, if I won, what I would do on the job. So let me address, not going to be a very long podcast today. I usually do about 25 minutes until I run out of park space. So the third plank is, I'm not saying we should not run candidates for office. It sounds that way, but it's not really true. There are reasons to run candidates for office, other than the notion, the fantasy that you're actually going to win. But given that I'm recommending in point 2 a drastic reduction in spending energy, time, and volunteers on electoral politics, obviously they're going to have to cut back on the number of elections. But I don't think that's a problem at all, because I think that we're running too many candidates for offices accomplishing almost nothing. And what I would suggest, and I haven't developed these thoughts in great detail, but I would continue to run a candidate for president. Our candidate for president generally gets a fair amount of attention. I would not preclude cross endorsements, though, and that may be controversial. I haven't totally made up my mind on that, but it seems like the system is rigged against third parties, and if we can gain some policy victories by cross endorsing a candidate, if we can get rid of HUD by endorsing a major party candidate for president, would that be worth it? I think so. HUD's a horrible government agency that pisses away like $60-70 billion a year, has destroyed many cities with ugly public housing projects and other horrible, urban renewal type projects. So I would consider cross endorsements, fusion voting, whatever the hell you want to call it. I'm not going to get caught up in terminology here. But I would focus in on key races, and I would encourage the National Libertarian Party movement to support, to put resources into key races around the country, as opposed to just having a scattergun approach, because that's not good strategy when you're outnumbered and outspent and outgunned. As I've talked about many times, I've studied military history and military strategy. The way you beat a superior opponent is by concentrating your forces into one spot. So I would do that. I would also focus on the one office that we really should be focusing in on, that, and for reasons I'll explain, that we have not focused in on, and that is the office of sheriff. The office of sheriff. Sheriff is essentially, leaving aside district attorneys who are prosecutors, they're law enforcement officers, I suppose. But they're not cops. District attorneys aren't out there on the street arresting people. I got to get across the street here. So the sheriff is the only cop that's elected that I know of. I'm not aware of any others. And I've studied the issue of the sheriff up here because a friend of mine wanted to run. We did a lot of research into the statutes as to the powers of the sheriff. There was a time when the sheriff had some control of the juries. That's not as true now as it was then. But there was some gray area about that. To the extent that the sheriff in any particular county or state has some influence over the jury process, well, that's a huge potential area for influencing the criminal justice system to be more libertarian, because, of course, libertarians want to educate jurors. That's part of my direct action project, because when you think about it, being a juror is direct action. You're not asking anybody else to do anything. You're actually voting. And in a criminal case, your one vote could save somebody from being convicted of an imaginary stupid crime, like gun possession or money possession or drug possession. So, but another quick thought, I'll sort of wrap it up because, again, point 3, targeting our resources more efficiently as to elections. I haven't fully developed this part of the platform. I have fully developed the first two. And so let me just point out another thing, that if you get a Second Amendment sheriff, some counties in the United States, they don't really have too many law enforcement officers. And if the sheriff is pro 2A, you have sort of a de facto constitutional carry in that county. But furthermore, in New York State, and I know this because I did the research, it helps to have a chair who's a lawyer, I guess. I think. I know. The sheriff has the statutory power in New York to appoint deputies. And, so we talk about the militia. The militia is kind of defunct. But you could, if you had a libertarian-friendly sheriff, you could possibly sort of recreate a de facto. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Got a bike. Go ahead, no problem. Just doing a little podcast here. All right. So you could create kind of a modern-day de facto militia, in addition to creating more opportunities for constitutional carry, because in New York State, in bad states like New York that piss on the Second Amendment, a deputy sheriff has more authority to carry a firearm. So you get bothered by somebody for carrying a semi-automatic rifle, you just pull out your deputy sheriff card. So that's basically it. I really need to get reaction. I need to find out more about what other candidates are running, what their platforms are. I know what my platform is. And I think that before anybody supports anybody else, or literally if you're on that small number of people who can vote, before you vote for anybody, I would say, well, Ostrowski has a 3-part platform. What's your 3-part platform? Are you for going back to having a hostile relationship with the president of the United States who came to your convention? You're going to negate all those efforts that were made? What's your feeling about direct action? Do you want to change strategy towards direct action, or do you want to continue doing what we've been doing for 50 years, which is a miserable failure? And then do you have any ideas for how to have fewer campaigns, but more efficient, more impactful campaigns, like Jim Ostrowski suggested? So those are basically my thoughts. I'm at the end of the bike path, and I'm just going to wait to see if I have any support. If I don't, I'll move on with all the other projects. I'm super busy all the time. I'm backed up with projects basically for the rest of my lifespan, book projects and other types of projects of that nature. But if I'm called upon, if I have the support, I'm inclined to formally announce my candidacy. But I got to wait and see. So let me know. I have no idea what people think. But have a great day. Enjoy the football game, everybody.